I want you to think about this as we go through today's presentation and as you work with colleagues or work with students. Just ask yourself, what about another way? I'm here to share ways on how you can take action to increase access for persons with disabilities during travel. And on the right side of the screen, a globe with a bridge crossing through the middle. And above that is the letters AWD, and wrapped around the globe and beneath that is Abroad with Disabilities. Moving on to the second slide, hopefully, just a moment. All right, there we go. Moving on to the second slide, you may wonder, what in the world is Abroad with Disabilities? I am the founder of Abroad with Disabilities. We were founded in 2015 with the goal of promoting the belief that persons with disabilities can and should go abroad. I studied abroad in 2013, where during my undergraduate studies, I attended Grand Valley State University in Michigan, and then studied with a third-party provider, International Studies Abroad, ISA. And through that experience, I was able to encounter much fun. It was a blast. It was a great adventure. But then there were also barriers. And I identify as being blind. And through that experience, I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of like, oh my goodness, what is going to happen when I go abroad? How do I utilize assistive technology? How am I going to get our books or materials in alternative format? What am I going to do about navigating from location to location? What's the viewpoint or the perception of disability or blindness abroad? What in the world is going on? I'm scared, I'm nervous, but excited at the same time. And gratefully, I had an amazing support system from my family to community members and some staff and faculty. But through that experience, upon my return, I was able to connect with a faculty member at Grand Valley State University, Dr. Natalia Gomez, and we had a conversation. I was actually in a literature course with her, a Spanish literature course at this time. And through that experience, we were just conversing with each other in her office, and I shared some of my feelings about my abroad experience. I was first off, when folks were asking me or telling me, oh, Juanita, you should write an article, or did you see that this person wrote an article, or I saw your article in the paper, whatever it may be. I was like, yeah. But after seeing that a few times, I'm like, you know what they're doing? They're really emphasizing disability. They're not really necessarily talking about my experience. Yes, they are, but they're really emphasizing disability. And for me, why is this such a big deal? I'm a language student. My degree is in Spanish. Why? Like, this should make sense of me going abroad, right? It just made the most complete sense to me. But little did I know that the number of individuals with disabilities that go abroad is not high. And I was very surprised. But this was also because of the environment and lifestyle that I had. So just looking around the community, looking at the Grand Valley State University's campus, looking at other surrounding universities and colleges, again, I observed not a lot of people have gone abroad with disabilities. So I was talking with my professor, Dr. Gomez, and she's like, have you ever thought of doing anything? I'm like, no, not really. I'm like, I'm just going to continue pursue my she's like, Juanita, you really should do something. And that's when she opened up about her hidden disabilities to me. She's no longer with us today as she's passed away, but the ability to connect with Dr. Gomez was just very, very admiring, inspiring. And because she shared something with me, and she was someone that came abroad to come teach and come raise a family and whatnot. So the fact that she shared with me, she's like, Juanita, I think you really should do something. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And she's like, think about it. Come back in my office next week and think about it. I said, I guess the biggest barrier or the biggest thing I really wanted was the ability to talk to people. I wanted to ask about topics relevant to going abroad with a disability. And that is something I wasn't able to do as easily. I was able to connect with my friends who've gone abroad, but they didn't identify as having a disability. I was able to ask like family members, extended family members, or whomever. But again, I had questions about disability. So that's where I started, along with other board members and other team members of Abroad with Disabilities, have founded the organization Abroad with Disabilities based out of Michigan in 2015. And since then, we have worked with professionals and travelers with many types of disabilities to fulfill their dreams of working, interning, doing a gap year, studying abroad, whatever it may be. And now more recently, even talking about study away programs, going from the East Coast of the United States all the way to the West Coast. And I was joking one time, I'm like, I never realized how long of a trip, like literally, for me to go to the East Coast, northeast part of the United States, to go all the way to California was basically the same for me to go to Costa Rica. And so that kind of concept was very different for me. So just really realizing, again, what is it? Like, why aren't people going abroad? And since then, we have been able to do so much more with Abroad with Disabilities. So what does AWD do? We have a universal design course that I actually developed and designed during an independent study course, another independent study course during my graduate studies at SIT Graduate Institute. And this again came from colleagues, cohort members, and even faculty members and staff members at my own institution who focus on international education as a broad sense for everyone, right? But not, again, conversation about how do you make your travel materials more accessible or not necessarily happening. And that's where universal design happened. Is universal design is an approach to increase access to multiple individuals at once. And that's where I created this curriculum and have since now worked with my team members on how to increase it, to enhance that course. And it's just been a blast because, again, we're talking. The whole purpose of Abroad with Disabilities is dialoguing about topics relevant to going abroad. And we've been able to do that through that course. And another reason why I decided to do that course is because, again, going back to when I was just coming back from coming abroad the first time, disability was emphasized, but not other identities. And through this, I wanted to understand, like, why are we having text on the screen? Why are we having closed captions? Why are we having maybe audio description? Why are we having handouts ahead of time? This benefits multiple people at once. So that's exactly what we do during that course. And as far as AWD Live, this is something that we've started a couple years ago now. And this is a discussion base. And so people will join on Zoom, whether they're professionals, whether they're students, whether they're support persons for maybe someone traveling with a disability. For example, we've had it where we've had a couple parents join in on the conversation with us because their 8th grader would like to go abroad. So we will have conversations, and there's times where we will have WD Live session. We're doing a topic on guide dogs, on going abroad, traveling in general. Because remember, traveling and gaining that cross-cultural experience can happen anywhere, right? It can happen at your authentic restaurant that's nearby. It could happen on the airport. It could happen in your work environment if you have a diverse team. It could happen when you traveled from the East Coast to the West Coast of the United States. It could happen internationally. And that is what brings me to the next point on the screen, is our hashtag LNI Travel Initiative. Local, national, international travel initiative. And this is an initiative that we have just begun at the beginning of this year. And again, this is really intersecting kind of the concept of universal design, this concept of identities, and the concept of taking individual action to increase access. So during this LNI Travel Initiative, we share resources, we share knowledge and awareness, experiences, and much more that can intersect between any type of local, national, or international travel. For example, assistive technology, the ability to navigate on a website, the ability to navigate on a learning management system virtually, whether you're having an online course, whether it's in person, whatever it may be, goes in any type of travel. Wayfinding technology. If I'm trying to find, I need to get a new bank, or I need to go see a veterinarian because I have my dog, or whatever it may be. You're still learning about things locally, but you're able to navigate with that wayfinding technology. So it's very important that we're just now conversing about knowledge, awareness, skills, resources, and experiences to enhance and strengthen access for multiple type of travel, which has been a blast. Because again, when we're talking about initially with abroad with disabilities, about going abroad with a disability, I have noticed, and my team members have noticed, the conversation within pre-departure orientations, maybe cultural courses, or whatever it may be, you're not having that conversations around activities of daily living. How am I going to read this document? How am I going to interact on social media? How am I going to go to this restaurant and make sure that my dietary needs are met? Are there peanut allergies in the area? What's going on? You really gotta, again, think about that local, national, and international. And that's a mission and a way for us at Abroad with Disabilities to take it, okay, we want people to go abroad, but we also recognize going abroad is not for everybody. It's not. But there's so many other ways to get that cross-cultural experience, whether it's that study away program, maybe a service learning project, maybe going to your local museum, whatever it may be. So again, that's really where our organization has come from. Thinking about universal design, thinking about how the student or individual with a disability can take their own action, how you as a professional can be proactive in making your content, your materials, your environments more accessible. So we really, really work with people one-on-one. We've had it where we work with a couple students, maybe 8 weeks straight for 30 minutes a week. We've had it where we work with professionals during our course, 8 weeks straight, 3 hours a week, to really develop and gain skills and awareness on how you can take action. Because I'm sure, our dreams, our vision is to see a university fully accessible to multiple people at once, right? But I don't see it happening in the near future, personally. But what I do see happening is that you as an individual can take action to increase access for persons with disabilities. So that brings me to today's session. Now that you have a little background about Abroad with Disabilities, about myself, I really want to share a few ways on how you can take action to increase access for persons with disabilities. And then I'm going to be available to answer any questions that you may have for me. Going on to the next slide. We're going to, let's discuss the following today. Just to be more specific, because We can talk about actions, but what type of actions? I want to discuss about describing and organizing your surroundings. Okay, whether it's surroundings such as in your personal office space, whether it's maybe online, whether it's when you're giving a presentation, or it's even on social media. We're just going to give some tips because trust me, I can talk about increasing access in many, many different ways and many different concepts, but this is here to support you and making you take individual action. Again, ask yourself, what about another way? The +1 approach. What else can you do to increase access? All right, your surroundings. So, what is your goal? Your surroundings. What is your goal? Why do you want people to interact with what you're doing? So, my surrounding is I want you to be able to interact with me, right? I want you to be able to see me presenting today. I want you to be able to ask me questions. Knowing that you are in a space and I'm remote, what is it? Okay, well, make and ensure this internet connectivity. Great. Okay, Zoom. UMass has chosen Zoom. Great. But what have they chosen Zoom for? To make sure it's accessible, because I'm a screen reader user, and if Zoom is not accessible, no, we wouldn't be talking today. So again, what are the materials? What's the content? What's the environment? What is your goal? How am I going to get there in multiple ways? And we actually use Zoom for our online course. And so how are we going to make sure that there are multiple ways to get to the goal? My goal, again, is for them to connect with me online. I want them to connect with me online. You can use a mobile application. You can use a web client. You can use a telephone. We could use CART services, C-A-R-T services, so that what is being spoken will be in text. We could use video relay interpreting, VRI, sign language. What's being spoken can be translated or interpreted to sign language. So again, how am I going to communicate in multiple ways? Like today, I could simply have a no PowerPoint. I don't really need it, right? But again, we want to consider the equitable use. We want to consider, okay, this is, what am I going to do as an audience member or as a person that's trying to engage with the content, materials, or environment? What am I going to do? Equitable use. And oftentimes during travel, you have to fill out a lot of forms, right? Whether it's maybe an application form to study abroad, whether it's maybe an agreement form, confidentiality agreement form, whether it's a health and safety form, whether it's maybe trying to go online and get the best airline deal on earth. There's a lot of things to fill out online, right? But when we're talking about equitable use, we want to think about, again, what's the goal? My goal is to complete this form. Great. But you want to, if your goal, and you emphasize on a website, because oftentimes you'll see on websites or forums that this is a secured platform, right? It's safe, it's secured, whatever. But I've had it, folks. I've had it where, oh, this form isn't accessible. So Juanita, we're going to have you fill it right in print on a piece of paper, and we're going to have you mail it to us. Or you just have to put the address and put the piece of paper in the mail. I had to laugh for a number of reasons. I told you I'm blind. I don't expect to be writing on a piece of paper. Secondly, I told you that I don't want my confidentiality. I want that to be ensured. I'm not going to write personal information, such as my social security number, on a piece of paper, put it through the mail, and have it go to an office without a direct person's name. And I had to speak up about that. Not only am I facing an access barrier, but I'm also facing confidentiality. And thankfully, after many conversations and whatnot, I was able to get that completed. But it's really thinking about, what about another way? What about another way? How else am I going to let people get there? Which brings us to flexibility in use. How are we going to let people get there in multiple ways? So we got that document. We're emphasizing that it's secured. Okay, it's not accessible. Acknowledge it. But what else can you do? What else? What other actions can be taken? And thinking about proactiveness, like maybe in a syllabus, thinking about because trust me, I am still learning. Although I talk about accessibility and usability, I am learning constantly. But having an open accessibility statement, any questions or about access or questions in general, please contact so-and-so. So just being alert, being cognizant, being mindful of what else can we do, and being mindful of you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. And that's what we want. We want you to be able to communicate. We want you to be able to collaborate. And we want you to be honest. Because I've had it where I am traveling, for example, when you're meeting people. These are things I didn't think about. I was meeting somebody at the airport for my study abroad experience. And they said, oh, you got to meet the people in the program. In this case, it was an ISA program. You had to meet these people with wearing these specific colored shirts. And I'm like, I can't see that. So what else can I do? Did I think about that as I was preparing to go abroad? Absolutely not. So I communicated my barrier with the program. And we brainstormed. They said, we never really necessarily had this question, but I want to make sure that you get there safely because health and safety is prevalent and important. So that's when I was able to, they said, I'm going to have a code and I'm going to call you with the code. And we don't want to have it via email. I'm going to call you with the code. And they were able to communicate that with me. And I was able to get there successfully and safely. But you really want to think about what about another way? Think about it. Okay, I can visually identify it, but how else can I identify it? Those are concepts you want to really consider. Your surroundings continued. Is it, excuse me, is it easy to understand? Is the goal easy to understand? If you want me to get to your office environment, am I going to have to go online and figure out, okay, I'm in Joseph's office and I'm trying to get into their office space, but they didn't tell me they're on the 12th floor. They just told me I'm in building A. Great, we're in building A. Have that text communication. Have it if you're doing an event. Have an accessibility area. A third floor, or you could even do this in like marketing and recruitment, right? Third floor off building A is where we're going to have the maybe geography series. And on this, you can enter via stairs or elevator. Elevator, great. There's an elevator there because there's some buildings on campuses or in the community where the elevator might only go to the second floor, but not that third floor. Or they may not have elevators at all. So really emphasizing describing the information that's around you. So again, if I'm going to building A, I have an event, the geography series, what do I need to know to get there? It's on the third floor across from the elevators. It's on the third floor to the left or to the south as you enter the stairs or come up off the stairs. Being descriptive. And even thinking about mobile applications, like a lot of faculty members and even staff members might be using mobile applications. How do I download it? Yeah, the assumption is, everyone knows how to get to that app store. Everyone knows how to get to that Google store. But how? What do I need to do? If I'm using a learning management system and I'm encouraging my students to use a mobile device, have it in text. Have the directions, instructions in text, and have it visually there as well. So for example, maybe the app is telling me how to sign into Kelsey's course. Great. Maybe take a screenshot of step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Write in the text, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So simple. You want to make sure that it's simple and intuitive. Is it easy to understand? And this is not only for people with disabilities, this is also for maybe for speakers whose first language is not English. This could also be for maybe just making it clear and concise, because everyone has a busy schedule. I don't want to be reading an 8-page document on how to download Kelsey's mobile application. I want to be able to do it in steps. And thinking about the effort it takes, maybe visually, someone's reading it with a magnifier. Is it organized? Is it readable? Is it left to right? Is whatever it is. Think about the simplicity of the work, because it's very, very important that you present the environment in multiple ways. Again, thinking about the equitable use, thinking about flexibility in use, and thinking about what is my goal, how am I going to get there in multiple ways, and how am I going to describe it, how am I going to support people in getting to my goal. I mean, unless you're trying to find, let's say, I don't know, let's say if we're doing like a geocache, or if we're trying to do something where we're hiding something specifically, even then, you don't want to say, okay, it's on street A, but you could say it's 1.5 miles or it's 1 kilometer from the building A. So that tells people how far they may need to walk. You could also say, like, describe the environment. I'm having a excursion and we're gonna go see the museum. And there's 4 floors, and the estimated duration of which it takes to go through those 4 floors is about 3 hours. So considering travel, again, this goes back to that local, national, international travel, is what else can you do? And supporting people and getting there with more ease. Because you want to try to make it as a low physical effort as possible. Being able to describe that information, be able to invite people. Because if I see an elevator, I've had it where I've done webinars and they say, oh, there's cart services. And people say, oh, I'm coming because of that. I've actually had that happen to me recently. We had offered video relay interpreting. This is awesome. I didn't even have to ask for it. Like, this is cool. I'm coming. And I'm telling 10 of my friends. Great. That's awesome. You're increasing access to multiple individuals at once, which is absolutely amazing. I know I just said a lot. And I want to take this time. I sent a Google Doc. I want to take this time for you to ask any questions. I want you to share what you know. Maybe there's other tips that I didn't talk about, which I know there are, because like I said, we could be here all day. But if you have something that popped in your mind or came to your mind and you're like, yes, I agree, I disagree, I want to share this, I have a question, please write it in the Google Doc. Or thinking about another option, flexibility, you can also just ask the question. And if I can't hear you, maybe the person nearby the computer can ask the question. But I want to take this time just to ask questions, share ideas. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can look at the Google Doc myself. And if there's any questions, please ask them, or ideas.
Are there any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
You work to help people with disabilities travel. What are you doing for people with cognitive disabilities?
Were you able to hear that, Juanita?
I was not. I was able to hear like the sound, but I wasn't able to hear the articulation.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
Hi, Anita. This is John.
Hello.
I'm asking, my question is, in your work to help people with disabilities travel, what have you doing, if anything, for people with cognitive disabilities?
Yes, absolutely. So with people with cognitive disabilities, we have even talked about, especially within study abroad. I mean, we can talk about internship locations, we can talk about gap year, we can talk about it. But within study abroad, and if you have another question that's not relevant to study abroad, let me know. But we will oftentimes talk about, they'll come to us and they'll say, you know, I need extended time. Great. But did you know extended time in another country actually means something different? Because maybe one country says where you can have like a time and a half or double time, in some cases, triple time. But when you say to another country and it says, I want extended time, the maximum is time and a half. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about even selecting a program, because you will see some programs that are literally 8 to 10 hours a day. And so we'll talk about, like, do you need breaks? Do you need to consider note taking? And what's the learning style? Because oftentimes people aren't familiar with study abroad. Study abroad is like saying there's restaurants or there's fast food restaurants. But what type of fast food restaurants, right? There's study abroad. There's direct enrollment, where I'm at the University of UMass, Amherst, and I'm going to, let's say, a university in Spain. I would directly enroll into Spain with the hopes that my credits can transfer back. I could also do like a third party or a partnership where UMass Amherst might have a partnership university and they work together. So it's really knowing how much support and organizing things. We also have worked with people who identify as having autism or being autistic, and we would talk about, what is it like to go from the airport? How are there accommodations that I can request? Like, we've had it where we've had a couple autistic individuals ask us, what support is there at the airport? And we know you can ask for a SkyCap, or you can ask for an assistance. You could also consider the timing of which you schedule your flights. Yes, there could be a price difference, but you could also consider the location. Like, is there a lot of people? So we've definitely worked with individuals with cognitive impairment. And we'll talk anywhere, if, like I said, from that packing, organizing things, to talking about assistive technologies, on text-to-speech, organizers, mind maps, whatever it may be, and we'll talk about that. And the beauty of it is that we can raise these questions, share these ideas, perspectives, resources, but they got to take the individual action, because they're in charge of their own learning and they know themselves and they know what they want, but we will support them in making that a reality.
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions?
It's not looking like it.
All right. That's not a problem. Good. I'm sure more questions will come, or ideas. Just a moment. Let me get my screen back up. All right, I am back, and you should be able to see me on video now. So we just got over some of the questions, but if you have more questions, again, don't hesitate to let me know, either today or offline. So now I want to talk a little bit about social media. Okay, So when we're doing social media posts, especially in travel, you see like, oh, you should join this program, or you should hear this story, or you should get this code because you get 10% off, or you're going to see all these amazing, beautiful pictures, videos, experiences, etc. But when you are writing a social media post, you want to consider, why do you want your audience to be engaged? Why? Why do you want them to be engaged? Do you want them to interact with your photo? Do you want them to use your hashtag? Do you want them to click on your link? Do you want them to share your materials? What is it that you want them to do? So, for example, I actually just did a podcast with UMass, the Assistive Technology Center. And when we shared that video or the podcast, I love the fact that they gave you equitable use. You could either listen to it or you could have the transcript. And B, I like there's the flexibility. I could do either. And C, I loved how that the links were right there in the post. So since I was sharing it, and why repeat they just wrote, I simply wrote audio and transcript available. So that can be a way to get people's attention. Because sometimes when you see a video, you may not see that it necessarily has closed captions or a transcript available. So being upfront and being descriptive with the content is going to be very helpful. So when you're doing your social media posts, I want you to consider camel cases within those hashtags. So hashtag, you may have noticed on the screen earlier when I was talking about the LNI Travel Initiative, it was hashtag capital L, capital N, capital I, capital T, lowercase RAVEL. Visually, that's going to be more helpful to read, right? It's going to break down the components. It's going to break down what is being there presently. And it's going to also be helpful to text-to-speech or screen readers, because I've seen some hashtags where they don't capitalize anything and it's one ginormous word. But when they capitalize the beginning of each letter or word, whatever's important, they are going to be able to listen to it better, but you're also going to be able to cognitively decode that hashtag as well. And another thing about hashtags is, do you necessarily need to put that hashtag in the middle of a post? Like, I love hashtag UMass because they're hashtag awesome and they're hashtag hilarious and they're hashtag amazing, and this is so hashtag awesome. Like, is that necessary? Or could it be helpful if I say, I love UMass Amherst because they're absolutely amazing, friendly, awesome, and just a wonderful community to be around. Hashtag kind, hashtag amazing, hashtag awesome. That's going to be more easier to many folks to read the social media posts that way. And also looking at, as I said, the long hashtags, like hashtag abroad with disabilities, capitalizing the A in abroad, capitalizing the W in with, capitalizing the D in disabilities. So hashtag abroad with disabilities versus hashtag abroad with disabilities. Like, trying to make that one ginormous hashtag. Another concept you want to consider is images. Although there's automatic alt text, alternative text, which is essentially describing the image, automatically, it's not the greatest. It's not necessarily helpful. I've had funny experiences, interactions. So on social media, you can utilize, such as Twitter, you can utilize on your personal device or the device that you're tweeting from, you can utilize the image description feature in the settings, so that a screen reader comes across and you can read it with that screen reader versus it saying image or IMG 1, 2, 3, 4, like a million different numbers. It's going to be more interesting to see like a sunset versus IMG or PNG or whatever it may be with a bunch of numbers. So thinking about the text, the accessibility features within like Twitter. I've seen on Facebook, and I do it myself, simply writing image description or photo description, and having it go there. You want to be brief and concise. Again, what is the goal? What is the goal of the image? Is the goal of the image to give me that promo code to go on your trip for free? Maybe, maybe not. If that's my goal, you better put that promo code in the image description. But if my goal is to show you the design of my promo code, describe it in more detail. So again, what's the goal and how am I going to get there in multiple ways? I'm going to describe it and I'm going to visually have that visual representation. And another concept you want to really recognize are descriptions. Descriptions. Are you going back to that link? Link to text. Link to video with captions. Or link to video with automatic captions. Because if you're familiar, there's some platforms that will do automatic captions. But are they captions or are they craptions? Are they legible, readable, understandable? True captions, or are they just crap? Are they craptions? Is it even worth looking at them? So again, having social media posts will allow you to, link to text or link to article on, let's say, studying abroad in Jordan. I don't know. What's the goal? What's the goal of the document? What's the goal of the link? I oftentimes will share, and especially if I'm sharing another person's post or organization's post, I will simply say link to text, link to video. And if I know that it's not accessible to my audience or to my awareness of accessibility, for example, I shared a video the other day and it had no captions. So what I did is said link to video, no captions available or audio description available, but I gave my own description. So taking that extra step, what about another way? What about another way that I can get there? Think about that +1 approach. How else am I going to get people to get there? So you really want to think about this. And although I mentioned a lot of this stuff related to disability, it actually helps. It can help with marketing. It can help with internet connectivity. For example, image descriptions, especially on Twitter. You go to Google, you go to your images, you're typing in the best snake in society, and it brings you a beautiful snake up. And you're in there, and it's going to bring you snakes up. Why? Because that's what the alt text is. That's what that search engine is going to come up. So when you're on a website and you're adding alt text to your website or your logo or to your images, and you type in, let's say, UMass Amherst, and I'm sure that the UMass Amherst, if they have a logo, that the logo will come up because that's the general phrase that can be used, right? So that could be helpful with marketing as well, marketing your content. Thinking about image descriptions as well about internet connectivity. I've had it where I've gone abroad or I'm in the country or my service is not the strongest, but I can read the text, but the image takes forever or the video is not loading. So having that video description is going to be helpful. Having that image description is going to be helpful. And not only with that, you're also thinking about content warnings or what if we're having a video about, let's say, maybe a political situation, or maybe a cultural situation, or a religious situation. Maybe if we're talking about Christianity, or are we talking about maybe a perception around the political, like maybe a Republican view, a Democratic view, whatever it may be. You could simply say, video introducing the framework of identity first language. Right? Identity first language is like me saying Juanita's blind or Juanita is autistic versus person first language. Juanita is a person who's blind. Juanita is a person who has autism. So again, having that content warning or that topic of discussion there is going to be helpful, because when some people see identity first language, they may not necessarily agree. They might need to kind of be in their own little area. They might need to prepare for that, or they might be doing research, and they're doing research and they're like, oh, identity first language. Let me put this in my favorites. Let me put this in my folder because I want to look at this later because I'm doing research on identity first language. So just thinking about those concepts, like how else are these methods or strategies and ways to increase access on social media going to be helpful? And knowing that this stuff is social media, this all can transfer to when you're giving presentations, right? All can transfer to presentations, describing the images as you converse on the slide, talking about the video. Okay, I'm going to show a video on identity first language, a 2-minute video. Here's the transcript, here's the closed captions, here's the video. So again, using this kind of language within your own work as an individual is going to be helpful. So it's really about what else, what about another way? That +1 approach. Because if you tell me that you can do everything on social media, oops, I just got out of the slide. If you can tell me that you do everything completely, fully accessible, I want you to consult me, because I would love to learn how to do that, because there's so many ways that we're all learning. And that's what I love about Abroad with Disabilities, is that we're all dialoguing. We're all coming together, we're working together, and we're enhancing and strengthening opportunities abroad and nationally as well as locally to get that cross-cultural experience. So I have no more to say at this time, but I want you to contact AWD or myself. My email is Juanita Lilly, JUANITA, Lilly, LILLIE, at abroadwithdisabilities.org, abroad, ABROAD, with WITH, disabilities, DISABILITIES.org. Again, that's Juanita Lilly at abroadwithdisabilities.org. Or you can call or text us at 616-379-9130. So I know that time is becoming slim, but I'm here to answer any other questions that you may have, to hear any other comments, ideas from all of you in the room.
Questions? I don't think we have any more questions.
No more questions. So I have a question for you all. So I would love to hear, what are some of the ways that you could take action to increase access within your own office environment, within your own individual work? What is something, and as you notice, all the ways that I've shared with you today don't cost money, right? I mean, they can if you're doing cart services, but they could if you're trying to video relay interpreting, but connect with your office on campus. Do they have an opportunity where you can request that? But I would love to hear from you. What are some individual actions that you can start doing or even strengthening?
We've got silence.
Well, I don't know if I have an answer to that question, but you've certainly given me a lot to think about.
Were you able to hear that, Juanita?
I was not, no.
Do you want to repeat? Can you get a little louder?
I don't think I have an answer to that, but you've certainly given me a lot to think about.
What was that? I heard, I don't think I have an answer to that. What was the other part?
That he now has a lot to think about, and that you have given him lots of different things and tools.
No, definitely. Yeah, no. And that's good. Like, that just tells you, again, there's so much more you can do. What about another way? That question is going to be with you forever. What about another way? That +1 approach. What else can I do to get people to that goal, to get multiple people to that goal, right? Because it's just like, if you think about it logistically, right? Let's say we're going to a concert. Not everyone is using one door, generally, right? You might have a line, you may have a long line, but there's not just one side of the door open. You might have the left side and the right side open. Okay? Excuse me. So what are the multiple ways to get to that end goal, that end environment, that end content, the end materials? Anyone else want to share a comment?
Most important thing, can you hear me, Monica?
Slightly.
That is, we're in a big space. Yes. I think the most important thing is just really increasing awareness, because I think a lot of people don't intentionally build barriers, but they do it without having the awareness of including all people. And so I think pointing out in your day-to-day life and seeing different ways in which the world is not currently accessible allows more people to start thinking about ways they can increase access for other people. I hope you got some of that. Did you get that?
Oh, whoops, I was muted. I was responding, but okay. No, I absolutely agree with that. And, as you were talking, the thing that I've noticed in that comment right there was attitude, right? It's attitude. Because as you recall me sharing, I had to really advocate about that form that they wanted me to fill out. And they're like, oh, this isn't accessible. We're not going to do anything about it. This is what you got to do. But really thinking, like brainstorming ways, like being honest, again, honest with your students, your colleagues, or whatever it may be, or whoever it may be. Being honest with people and just being open. Because like I said, there's so much things that we can do as a community, as a global community, to increase access. And if we're not familiar or aware of that, how are we going to do it? So now, even learning about resources, because don't get me wrong, there's some faculty and staff members where you're not going to make everything accessible, right? That's why you have different departments. That's why you have different people on campus. You're there to collaborate, to make it a reality. So again, I really like the comment, like, it's being aware, but it's about attitude as well. Being honest and being open. Any other comments, questions, thoughts, ideas? Or reactions to my original question? What are you going to do to increase access as an individual?
I think that's about it.
All right, that's great. No, I'm very happy. I hope that this presentation today was beneficial. I've really enjoyed being with you all remotely, and maybe someday I will return back to UMass Amherst.
Yes, thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you all take care, and we'll chat soon.
Yes, thank you again.
Of course.